Welcome to another edition of A Strange New Pod. I am your captain and host, Julian Brown, and I can safely say that no starships were stolen during the recording of this podcast. Yet. Joining me, as always, is the best bridge crew this side of the Delta Quadrant, Rear Admiral Eric, Lieutenant Brittany, Lieutenant Hawk, and the Ensign Admiral herself, Ensign Admiral Aaron. And I actually forgot to put Giraffe on there because I'm copied and pasted off another
podcast is over.
Another outline. So you're just not on the show this week. Sorry. Nope.
She's the one who stole the ship. So
she stole the
She's
ship, which is why
captain.
she's not on here.
That.
Of course, Commander Giraffe as well. Glory to you and your houses. Welcome aboard. And as everyone on Twitch can see, we have an extra window on the view screen tonight. Delighted to welcome the co-executive producer and writer of Star Trek Prodigy, and I think the first Emmy winner we've had on the show, which is awesome. Aaron Waltke, welcome to the show.
Hey, it's a real delight to be here. I if you can't tell, I love talking about Star Trek. Maybe too much. I think some people on my crew wish I would talk less about it, so they can get back to work.
Gotta tell you, never noticed. Not one bit. Nope.
I
mean,
think
we're
there's
here
too
for
much, right? There's never too much.
yeah, there's not really too much.
Sure. I'm still noodling on. Did you say someone was an ensign admiral? Is that
yes? So
There's
Aaron
a story.
down below. There's a story, but she is the ensign admiral of the show. Go ahead, tell your story.
There was a competition on the Delta Flyers podcast,
Okay.
Robert Duncan McNeil.
Yeah.
And so me and a couple of friends were just every day posting these dumb photos, and a friend of mine would just manipulate them. And so he did one where he changed it, so I had like 100 pips all across here. So we decided, and that it was so funny, but it just kind of stuck. So I'm the ruler of everything, really.
She had
Cheers.
every tip from ensign to admiral.
Yep.
Yeah. It's funny because like ensign admiral, like it's the least and the most.
The duality of
Commodore,
man,
I guess,
right
is
there.
above
The beginning and the
admiral.
end.
It's
Yeah.
it's almost
Exactly.
something that Dahl might call himself if he didn't know ranks.
There you
It's
go.
like
That's
the
him.
best
You can have that one.
and the worst.
Yeah. Skipped right over lieutenant junior grade and everything.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
He's like, Junior, please.
We
Anything I've
want to welcome everybody watching live on Twitch tonight as well. We have a show to get to, obviously our interview with Aaron, but if we have time to get to your questions, we will try and ask them as well. We're going to get right into this. Aaron, we weren't going to put you on the spot, but you had so much talk. Like you said, you love talking about Star Trek. You had so much talk about dilithium hyping up your appearance on our show. We have to let you have your moment. What's up with the dilithium crystals?
Well, I mean, that was mostly me bluffing on Twitter, but I can talk about dilithium if you want. I mean, I always love the thing about Prodigy in particular that I love doing is sort of like taking these little tidbits of what everyone kind of the pop culture assumes about Star Trek and then kind of needling out like, oh, actually it's this or this is possible. So a lot of people think dilithium crystals are fuel. They are not. They are the middle part of a matter antimatter reaction in the warp core. They basically just stabilize stuff. But and you know, you can regenerate it as we saw in Star Trek 4. They just have to find a nuclear vessel.
A nuclear vessel.
Nuclear whistle.
And you know, and obviously Trek writers over the last 50 years have loved kind of reinterpreting what dilithium does, what its purpose is, how it works. They, you know, I think in DS9, maybe even in TNG, they started introducing trilithium, which was
Yep.
a whole other can of worms,
Mhm.
which was sort of like is it super dilithium or is it like just toxic, sort of radioactive ore that you can use to make bombs? You know, like it's
yeah,
everything.
DS9 was a lot about that.
and then one Kelpian just blew it all up. So
That's
there you
true.
go. Spoilers if you haven't watched Discovery season 3,
Yeah.
but we're almost at season 4. So
I was about to say,
lose, you
sometimes you
lose.
just gotta cry lithium. And
That's true.
that's just
I like to believe in my heart of hearts there's still a dilithium
button.
mine out there somewhere waiting.
you want me to hit the button for
Yeah.
Brittany? Okay.
Probably.
Yes, please.
Yes.
Get off my bridge.
There.
Question about dilithium.
Just wait, Brittany is a pun machine and it's majestic.
I'm being
You have a
respectful
sound
tonight.
machine, a soundboard.
I
love
do.
it.
I have a
It's all just to
soundboard.
shame me.
It's literally there for the sole purpose of shaming Brittany on this show.
It's true. It really is.
The life of the party.
And making fun of my accent.
No.
Oh, yeah.
No,
Never.
Love your accent.
never.
C'est magnifique.
So obviously we're gonna get talking to you about some big news announcements. Congrats on the season 2 pickup.
Thank you.
We'd heard that this might happen a few months ago, but it's cool that it's official now. So that's awesome. Are the 10 episodes we're getting added to the season originally slated for season 2, or was this always part of the plan to be part of a 20 episode first season?
Yeah, so I think if you really dig back into the press releases, back when the show was first announced, they did announce 2 seasons of 10. So, rather 2 releases of 10. But then when we were doing it, we just kind of assumed we broke it into arcs so that it would work okay that way. But it was a 20 episode order for season 1. Okay. So the renewal is for an additional 20 episodes. So that's good. We're going to get 40 episodes total, and in classic Trek par for the course, so there's going to be 2-parters. So how do you count
Yes.
those? But that's Trek to a T, of course.
Mm-hmm.
That's exciting.
It is, and
so-
people. Sorry, real quick. Like people on Twitch are just saying, like, it's so just grateful to have more to look forward to already, and we're not even 5 episodes in. So that's
I
awesome.
love when animated shows get the chance to be 4 to 5 episodes in, and they're like, "Hey, you know what? It's renewed," instead of like suddenly it's canceled, and you're like, "We didn't even see all of the first season. Like, how can you decide?"
Especially in animation, it takes so long to make a single episode. In 2D, it could take maybe 8-9 months. In 3D, it can take up to a year and a half, sometimes longer, so it actually is helpful to get the renewal sooner than later. So that way the team can just keep trekking on to the, to the next. Wait, do I get a soundboard for that one?
You should give him a good one.
Which ones do I have that are good? That
Lizard
we're keeping
baby.
So the problem is too is we're keeping it PG while Prodigy is on.
Oh,
so
yeah,
I
some
have
of ours are
to.
bad.
Oh yeah.
I'll just give him the one I gave you
Get off my bridge.
Fair
because
enough.
it works.
Aw.
So there.
I
you
didn't
go.
realize there was non-PG Trek soundboard.
A lot
Yeah.
of them.
Ensign
like
Beckett
lower
Mariner
decks.
is
All right,
all
all
you
right,
need
all
to know.
I
Okay.
love Mariner. That's my favorite shame.
But yeah, it's good to have that runway because obviously we want to retain the artists and be able to plan for the next season and figure out things, and that can obviously if we started knowing we only had 10 and then we'd wait and see, we would maybe structure it a little bit differently or whatnot. But knowing that we had that runway to let the characters grow organically and stuff, is very helpful. And I think when people see the show and what we're doing with the characters, over these first 20 episodes and now onward into the next 20, I think suffice to say, we'll be growing up with these characters. And I think that, even though they maybe started in a not so great place on Tars Lamora, and, they never had that Maslow's hierarchy of needs fully fulfilled, in many ways, I think for kids, that's what the Federation represents, is a chance for, that longing and that need of that comes with scarcity. If the Federation is post scarcity, so we have the chance to pursue our better selves, and that's really, I think, the heart of the show. So we're still in those early days where they're almost like shelter puppies, kind of realizing that there is a better world out there, and something to strive for. And that's what Trek always has been. It's not about a perfect future, it's about people striving to be better. So yeah, I don't know how I got into that philosophical rant.
That was pretty good.
That was
though.
great.
That ties into stuff we were talking about last episode too. And I say Lamora episodes the better.
Oh, come
So
on.
season 3, renew. Let's go.
I mean, it's really nice to hear how genuinely, like how much you love Trek, because sometimes, you talk to people and they're like, I work on this thing, blah, blah, blah. You seem like really excited about it. And being a fan and seeing your thing come to life, like, what is that like? Because I can't imagine that's such a cool transition.
Yeah, I've said this elsewhere, but it's so interesting because I've worked on so many projects. I was a executive producer and co-showrunner on Tales of Arcadia from Guillermo del Toro, and I worked for WB on a spinoff of the Lego Movie called Unikitty that was really fun. But it's working on this show on Star Trek. It was really more like, it was the first writing experience where it felt more like breathing to me than actually like writing, because I just intuitively knew like what was Trek, what wasn't, what would happen if if they were put in this situation, what would happen if someone who didn't know about Starfleet was put in this situation, or might make assumptions about this, not realizing that, oh, Trek already thought of that, and there's a reason we have a prime directive, that sort of thing. And putting myself in that shoes of an outsider looking in at something that's so saturated my mind for the last 30 plus years, it was really interesting to me, because I was like, how would I sit down and explain all the stuff I love about Trek to someone who has zero frame of reference, or their only frame of reference they have is Star Wars or Mass Effect or whatever. And I realized that there's just like some core concepts, and there are other Trekkies in the room as well. And I have to give a shout out to Shauna Benson, who was probably the other one in the room who rivaled my Trekkiness the most. But Jen Murrow, I think, has also been giving me a run for my money, who is on season 2 with us. But we all, it was really fascinating that we all just kind of gravitated to like, oh, this is the episode where we introduce what tricorders are. This is where they learn what a transporter is, because like all of these concepts, we just kind of, as a Star Trek fan, you just kind of take them for granted almost. And all of us, I'm sure, our entry into Trek was just to binge watch or just absorb it all and have no idea what was going on, and gradually start making the connections. And I think, in the age of peak TV, where you have kids that will just put on Coco Melon or whatever, or
Coco Melon, that show is the bane of our existence in this house.
I know.
I hate it so much. I hate it so much.
Or you have every TV show now looks like a movie and is expecting to have that sort of narrative complexity, that if you take a young child and sit them down in front and try to just force them to watch Inner Light, they might respond to it, but they might say, they might have the same exact experience we did when that was all there was, and that was pushing the envelope. I feel like attention spans, I don't want to say are necessarily shorter, but I think the appetite for audiences has evolved in a way that I think Star Trek still can exist in that universe, or Milky Way, as it were. And so, yeah, that was always, I think, the interesting kind of challenge, right? Was like, how do we tell a story that is at the heart about these kids finding their way in a greater community, in a greater galaxy, but also along the way, the tangible elements of Star Trek, we understand what the emotional ramifications of each one of those things is, of how transformative that would be to a young person who had never seen them before, i.e. perhaps some of our audience. And yeah, it's been wonderful. It's also been nerve-wracking, because I do feel a lot of the pressure to like, I have to get this right. I have to save the next generation. And it is always a balance, right, of finding stuff that is kid friendly and embraces the spirit of Trek, even if like it isn't exactly what you might think you're signing up for when you sit down to watch an episode of Deep Space Nine. It's a different approach, because in Star Trek traditionally it's well-seasoned veterans, and you're kind of just thrown into it, where the captain can just say, fire the photon torpedoes, to the bridge, enter, come. And but when you start with a kid that maybe doesn't know anything, and maybe has an inherent distrust of authority, and slowly realizing that structure and working together isn't inherently bad, I think that's an important thing, I think, for a lot of kids to understand. And so the pressure we felt was like, how do we how do we strike that balance and really sell kids who maybe think that, you know, the show where there's all these military-esque people in pajamas firing old school special effects at each other, it actually has something special to it that they can think is cool. Because Star Trek is cool. Let me make that clear.
It is cool. It absolutely is cool.
I mean,
Yes.
well, we're all on a podcast for Star Trek. I think we all think it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Aaron, speaking about the next generation and making sure that you're getting it right for them, I have one of them sitting right next to us.
Oh my gosh.
She's got to go to bed soon, but you could tell Aaron, what are you thinking about Prodigy so far? This is Cecily, by the way.
Hi, Cecily.
Like, if there's gonna be any more people coming on the show.
Oh, that's actually a very astute question. What I can say is there are going to be more people on the show. And, you know, Star Trek wouldn't be anything without its guest stars or, you know, picking up crew members as you go. So, you know, I think that you'll be pleasantly surprised to see all the new fun people they meet on Star Trek Prodigy.
There you go. And are you liking Star Trek Prodigy? Yeah. Who's your favorite character?
I like Rock and Murph.
Hey,
Yeah.
good choice.
There you go. Well, say goodnight, Aaron, and say thank you for bringing us Star Trek Prodigy.
Good night. That was delightful. That makes me very happy that whenever fans have been sending me little videos of their kids, like, you know, we got phasers. I'm like, yes, we do have phasers.
I actually thought it was really funny. One of the promo screen caps that they posted this week was them getting their tricorders, and someone made a pretty funny tweet. It's like, oh look, kids on their phones.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thankfully, we were able to tie it more into, hey, kids, get outside.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Go play Pokemon
exactly.
Go, Star Trek Go.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Star Trek Go. You could have the ships going around. You could do little battles. Guys, we should do this.
Oh man, like
I'm pretty sure
you're
Paramount
just
got
printing
it.
money over there.
Yeah.
I know.
We have a lot of merch ideas. We have like the
Yes.
StarTrek.com merch brain trust here, but they don't listen to us. That's
I'm
okay.
telling you, they
Yet.
should really
Yet.
call us.
Yet.
Yeah, it's interesting with animated shows too, because again, this is way above my pay grade, but the toys always roll out. They wait for the show to build enough audience so that when they hit the shelves, there's a market for it, and they can keep going and keep making more tiers of toys and stuff. So, you know, the toys are coming. Don't worry.
Finally.
Never soon enough, in my opinion, but they're coming. And hopefully they do well, that they can continue coming and we can have Star Trek toys on the shelves again.
We love a good Star Trek toy.
We
They
should
look
get the ship
amazing.
as the hallmark, you know, to go. I need all the ships on my tree.
Oh, absolutely. Like I had so many Hallmark decorations on my tree growing up. I brought some of them into the Star Trek Prodigy office, actually, because one of our assistants had strung up string lights, and so I just subtly replaced one with like a board cue.
Yes.
Nice.
Placed another one with the Voyager.
You're our kind of people.
I think the best one I had was Deep Space Nine, that actually like played music or something when-
That's awesome.
and lit
Nice.
I love it. Well, I guess unlike Deep Space Nine, from the get-go, we knew that Prodigy was going to be very geared towards kids and a younger audience, which we just saw with Cecily, obviously. So we were wondering, how has it been working with the Hageman brothers and the other writers to make sure that the show succeeds at bringing in a younger audience? And do you think that early on it's been successful in doing so?
Yeah, I mean, I've known the Hagemans now for, gosh, almost a decade now, which is kind of crazy. I first met them working on Troll Hunters. Like they were hired as the head writers, and we hired a very small staff on that show. It was the Hagemans, myself, Chad Quant, and AC Bradley, who is now running Marvel's What If. And so it was just basically the four of us writing the whole 52 episode show, and didn't have a whole lot of restrictions other than just make sure it's good. So thankfully, I got to work alongside Mark Guggenheim also, who
very cool.
created the Arrow universe and as a prolific movie writer and comic book writer. So he was busy on Legends of Tomorrow, but he was also sort of our consigliere and would write an episode here or there and give notes on the scripts. And of course, Guillermo del Toro weighed in on every script. So we all, it was a great boot camp, because before that I was a movie writer. I had written a lot of features, and I'd also written for like some streaming series, like web series and stuff. But that was my first TV show that they hired me on, and we all got along swimmingly. And it was very simpatico. Everybody was playing at the top of their game, top of their intelligence. And thankfully, the Hagemans continued that spirit into Prodigy. Everything that people are asking questions about are like, ooh, they took the bait, like how did they get there? What, and where in the Alpha Quadrant, or where the Delta Quadrant are they? And
why was there only one emergency shuttle?
Yeah, where's the previous crew? Like all these great questions that we certainly thought about. And it's been fun to lean so heavily on the mystery, which again was helpful, I think, of knowing that we had so much runway of it. We had the 20 episodes, and now we have another 20, so that we can kind of not front load it, so you're not just having episodes of people spending 10 minutes info dumping exposition, and then you have 10 minutes of trying to do something interesting and colorful for the kids. Instead, we got to kind of like organically just meet the characters, meet the world, and find the key places we could drop these little hints. And that was very much how we worked on Tales of Arcadia as well. We were like, we know where these characters are going, so let's give them a chance to grow. Let them make mistakes. Let them try to do their best and fail. Because I think that it's just as important to learn how to react to failure as it is to always just succeeding and being friends and such, because life is complicated, and helping kids through that was always kind of at our foremost. It's like, not everybody's home life is the best. What about those kids? Is there a future for them? And I think the answer is an unabashed yes. You just have to give them a chance. And those are the sort of things we talked about with the Hageman brothers in the writer's room. Everybody in the writer's room were very intelligent and very emotionally and empathetically astute. And when I was brought on to be co-head writer for season 2, we've very much kind of just continued that vibe of like, let's not talk down to kids. That's awesome. Let's be willing to do the hard stuff. Those hard emotional moments, because it'll be all the more rewarding when they grow from them, right? So that's been kind of the vibe, and we always said from the beginning, I think kids are much more intelligent viewers than some programs, I won't name names, give them credit for. And I would say it's been overwhelmingly the case that all the kids are like, I get it. I know who these characters are. I see Good and Gwen. I love Murph. I hope Dal wises up. They get all of it. And I really hope that we're able to lure them in and have this be their Trek, and then they'll be like, wait, why did Janeway mention that particular adventure? And then they could go back with their parents and watch that episode, and that's the way it was for me. TNG, then Deep Space Nine, especially, which is like this hub that all the other shows seem to circle around. That was me.
I can't wait personally to do that. I don't feel like there's been like quite an episode yet to be able to do that. But
they're
like
coming.
To say, they're coming. Yeah, like to say, hey, like Janeway's talking about this. Like, let's go watch some Voyager. And I think like she could potentially really like Voyager and maybe like relate to Janeway and that crew. Like I'm stoked
as long as it's
for that.
not Year of Heck.
Yeah.
I censored myself.
Good
I think
job.
it's safe to say that you are forging the way for the next generation.
Oh.
Oh my
You're welcome.
God.
My bridge.
You've officially had my blessing, so the show will have 7
Thank you.
seasons in a movie. You're welcome.
I hope so. I hope fans will like, considering the track record of Star Trek of first seasons, I think we're actually doing pretty well so far.
Absolutely.
Just the intro, first of all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gorgeous. Yeah.
You didn't even need to make a show at that point. We're like sold, done.
Yeah. Will we be the first series to grow a beard the first season? I don't know.
All right. Challenge
If you do,
accepted.
it better be Murph.
I don't know. I feel like Lower Decks grew the beard in the first season. I feel like they definitely did it.
That's true. I think that maybe because we have a lot of surprises and mysteries, even for like hardcore Star Trek folks.
Nice.
And so, I think it'll be interesting when we throw them a curveball and they realize, 4 or 5, 10 episodes later, there's an explanation for it, and it's fun to kind of see the gears turn, why that stuff happens.
Hawk.
So it's interesting you talk about not wanting to talk down to children with this series, and that it kind of leads us into our next question about this week's episode, Dreamcatcher, because the episode has these like darker tones that might be a little bit scary for children, like this organism of this planet that feeds on them while keeping them sedated with dreams.
Sure.
But it still managed to keep this really good balance of fun and even humor. Are there any rules you guys follow to make sure the show doesn't cross like a certain line that might be too much for kids, but still keeps the show deep enough that an adult audience wants to stay invested in it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good question, and it's something that we certainly explored a lot on Tales of Arcadia, especially because Guillermo del Toro, there was just this assumption that there would be a little bit of dark fantasy and horror elements to it. And so something we learned on that show is like, as long as you give it a certain fantastical bent and you show that the kids are able to be proactive and come out safely the other side, it has just as a powerful and therapeutic effect, because, it's just like a good video game, or a lot of my favorite Amblin films of, the 80s and 90s, where it's like, some of the movies I watched way too early and scared the dickens out of me, but seeing the protagonists sort of figure their way through it and get through their fear and come out the other side, it helps in turn kids realize like, oh, just because I'm a little scared in this moment doesn't mean I'm going to be scared forever. And I feel like that's a really important thing that goes very hand in hand with discovery, right? Not the show, well, the show too, but but the venturing into the unknown is an inherently scary thing.
And conquering fear, which has been kind of a main theme in Star Trek.
Overcoming trauma as well. I see that a lot in these characters. I'm like, oh, trauma.
We're trying to strike a balance with that, where we're trying to like not ignore the fact that they came up in very difficult times, but also show that like those little baby steps they make mean all the world to them. But in terms of like finding that line, it's not so much a science as it is an art, I think, because some of my favorite Next Generation episodes growing up were terrifying, like truly scary, that especially like I remember watching the first couple seasons and just like a dude's face melted off and exploded. But then that night I just couldn't stop thinking about it. Like, I can't believe they show that. Can they show that? Why'd they show that? And then so obviously with this week's episode, this was sort of a horror-esque, but more like a dreamlike horror, whereas it's kind of interesting that people thought this episode was scary. I'll leave it at that. But ultimately we realized, like, as long as we show them conquering it and finding a way, like, not to pull from a different franchise, but fear is the mind killer. And
yes.
And it's
bless the maker in his passing. Sorry.
Yes. Yum 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 wop, or whatever they say.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those things where there is that sort of animal brain reaction and gut reaction to things, but then there's also the ability to center yourself and remind yourself that what the real world is versus what your emotions are. And that's very much, I think, what the theme of this episode was, and it's supposed to be kind of a mirror in a lot of ways of the emotions that maybe some of them have been sort of suppressing or just kind of trying to set aside. You know, in a weird way, it's sort of therapy, I guess.
So
Oh man,
you
I
were
have another
speaking
question.
about.
Oh no, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, it's for later because of this conversation. Go ahead.
So we're speaking about how the characters have to conquer fear and grow and take steps. So my question is more about the show itself. We know this kids show that evolve with the audience and grow with them until they're able to be sent off to other part of the franchise, right? So is that the
They're gonna graduate to Discovery.
You never know.
slowly?
Yeah.
So is it the plan for Prodigy to grow alongside the kids and like mature as they mature, or Prodigy is gonna be a kids show first and keep sending kids to to graduating track? Sorry.
Yeah. Well, if you're asking if it's going to be like The Simpsons, where Maggie is 2 years old for 35 years, the answer is no. Time does march forward. Like, you know, when we get to star dates, you will see star dates do advance, and you will see the characters grow and mature and change as we go on. I think it was always our sincere hope that the characters would grow up with our audience, and you know, just like Harry Potter, just like Avatar: The Last Airbender, just like so many great shows that start perhaps skewing younger and then gradually kind of
Wars.
win awards. And but you're able to tackle more complex issues and themes as you kind of build this framework that with even just within viewing the show, they can understand that internal logic, because that's what kids, I mean, I'm obsessed with world building. I always have been, but I think kids are too. Like, kids love being able to say like, oh, the dad on Lego Ninjago is named Lord Garmadon, and you don't know that. You know what I mean? Like
I like saying that.
Yeah. And so like it's, you know, every kid is a germinating Trekkie waiting to blossom. So we wanted to start simply and slowly kind of build out that lattice work of like, okay, here's the basic tenets of Trek. Here's why you should care about it. And then gradually start expanding on that mythology and connecting it to other mythology of stuff of what's happening in 2383 and onward. And you know, and as I said, we've seen a little bit of Picard of this era, but basically nothing. You know, we've seen a lot more of like maybe 3 years earlier in Lower Decks, but you know, the 2380s, at least before Utopia Phoenicia, was a very idealistic time. I think it was wide open possibilities, and
you just gave me goosebumps talking about all that. That's it's like connecting the worlds.
And it's you know, when you think about it, like the Shinzon incident is over, the Dominion War is ended, people are finally begun rebuild. Voyager came home in 1978 in 2378 in 2378, carrying like literally game-changing technology from venturing into the far reaches of the Delta Quadrant. You know, quantum slipstream, Borg knowledge. They used the transwarp multiple times, and also the Borg Queen. The Borg Queen was defeated with the neurolytic pathogen, and so like the Borg are now like very much sort of like on the back burners in a way. Like that. So as I think we saw a hint of in Picard, there's all these like transwarp conduits that are just kind of there as open highway. You know, it is this sort of open, optimistic era of expansion that I think, you know, and I'm just talking about Star Trek canon here, and that's why I think that you saw the Maddox androids come into service to service that open expansion, because you know they had quantum slipstream and they have and all this stuff that they had a chance to study for 5 years, and you know, thorough scans of all these different ships and space stations and data and technology that they traded for, and you know, the glimpses we saw of the future, in TNG and DS9 and Voyager, I feel like that a lot of those changed when you saw when you had 2404 Catherine Janeway change the timeline. So that she basically made it so they came home 14 years earlier. So all this cool technology, it was just kind of like waiting to be unpacked. That I'm sure they've been studying stem to stern, and now we finally get to see the fruits of that, and you see little glimpses of it in the Protostar, and we'll continue to.
I love that you're just sprinkling us with little things and not saying anything at all. It's perfect. And
I mean, it's filling in gaps in the timeline.
Yeah, exactly. And the
I think
the Protostar is such a cool
you could say they're it's been a long road from
no. I knew you were gonna say it as soon as I said the time.
I mean, it's been a long road, but our time is finally here.
Oh boy. Aaron, I want to make sure that you are okay on time. I know that Eric had a quick question from his kid that was really cute, and I wanted to make sure he got to ask.
Well, first I have to thank you because my daughter now comes home every Thursday and is like, "Is there Star Trek? Is Star Trek ready for me now?" I'm like, "Yes, I got the couch ready for you." I'm like, "It's all prepped and ready." She had two questions. One, she ships Gwen and Dal, and she wants to know if they're gonna kiss. She's 7, by the way.
Isn't she too young for that?
She's nope.
Oh my God.
No, she watched all of She-Ra.
She did.
Well,
my mind is just blown
and
up.
Steven Universe. So, yeah.
Well, to quote River Song from Doctor Who, spoilers. So I can't say one way or the other, but their relationship, as you can tell, is important. And as they kind of work out, their differences of since he kind of made the choice for her to bring her on this journey, and her still struggling with what her role is with her dad, and the choices she made and the consequences of that on their relationship, which you're definitely going to see in the next episode as well. I think I'm trying to think about what I could say. I won't spoil anything. Just know that their relationship will continue to evolve, and it's very much a central tenet of our show. I hope your 7-year-old daughter is satisfied.
The second little quick question. It's her first Star Trek show, so her seeing Janeway at the end of the first episode, she was like, "Oh, there are humans on this. Are there going to be more humans?" So it sort of goes off of what Cecily said.
Well, I think that we have announced that there are other humans that are from the show, from previous shows, like Captain Chakotay will make an appearance in the show. I can't say when, but he's coming. So there are other humans in Star Trek world.
Thank you.
Brittany, did you have a quick question?
It's super quick. I was just wondering, with Dreamcatchers and the fact that it's like a little horror-y and there's like weird snaky vines and stuff, just wondering if maybe it's a reference to Stephen King's Dreamcatchers that I was obsessed with when I was 9.
No,
I mean,
there's some elements, elements.
I will say there are elements of Stephen King that inspired us in that episode and other episodes for sure.
We are blessed.
In terms of it being,
I love Stephen King.
In terms of it specifically being the movie or the book Dreamcatcher, I don't.
Yeah, it's not gonna be exactly. But I saw the episode title and I immediately was like, oh, we're in for a treat today.
Aaron, we want to thank you so much for spending time with us this evening. Before we let you go, part of our show every week we do something called the strange new loop, and I'm going to play the really annoying sound that we play every week when we do that. And we ask a question to our crew that usually has something to do with the episode of Star Trek we watched when we're doing our show, and we wanted to get you involved with that real quick. This week's loop question is, and obviously because this is a kid show and it's PG, we don't need to go into our deep dark secrets, but what would be the dream or the want that the organism on the planet on this week's episode would try to keep you on the planet with?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. I get a penny farthing and a live dinosaur as a pet and a suit of armor.
If I see
easy.
those running around LA, I'll know who it was.
Yeah, right.
Like, it wouldn't be the weirdest thing I saw in LA.
Yeah, I would just be a hipster basically on that planet.
Yep.
Yeah, right.
Oh, dreams
Like,
come
he
true.
has a dinosaur.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Aaron, thanks once again. Real quick, if you'd like to share, where can people find you on the internet? If there's anything else you want to add before we let you go.
Yeah, it's been first of all, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. I love talking about Star Trek, and especially our show, which I hope everybody will give a sincere chance to. So I think you'll like where we're boldly going. You can find me on most social media as Good Aaron, GOODAARON. I'm on Twitter probably most actively. I'm also on Instagram, and then I sometimes post on Tumblr as well. But yeah, Twitter is probably and Instagram are the big spots.
Awesome. Well, Aaron, it's been an absolute pleasure. Maybe we'll talk to you when season 2 comes around. We'd love to have you on again.
Yes, that would be delightful. And truly cannot believe that I get to work on Star Trek, and I cannot wait for all of you to see the strange new worlds and new civilizations that we are going to be seeking out. And perhaps not so strange new ones, but rather.
Ooh.
Wow, way to be a proto-star guest right now.
Oh, wow. Ladies
Now
and
you-
gentlemen, Aaron Waltke, thank you.
Thanks for beaming into our podcast today. If you want to keep the hailing frequencies open, you can subscribe on Apple and Google Podcasts, YouTube, and Spotify. Like what you hear? Put in a good word with Starfleet and leave us a 5-star review.